Jen, and I am an alcoholic. Hello, everybody. Sobriety date of 7/10 of 2019. I have to adjust myself and look at everyone. Okay, good. I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous through the low risk facility, through a school teacher. And I was in there for charges that were related to alcohol. I was in a blackout on my lunch break, and from a day of playing video games and smoking weed and drinking, I didn't know that a blackout could happen after a Xanax, but it did. And I hit a couple of things and then ran out, and then I think I was arrested and put in jail. And sitting in the low risk facility, and then they called for AA, and it was just something that I was introduced to through that. But what I remember in sitting in there was the story that she did, and when she expressed things that I couldn't relate to. And I was just trying to be open for the experience, mainly because I had just gotten this close to getting a graduated degree. And that was something that was for 3 generations. It was put on me to do so. But after my father died, I wasn't really equipped with the skills to handle that. So, my introduction to AA was something that was brought on, definitely not something that I put in my life, I guess you put it that way. I'm really nervous. Let's get on my nerves. It works. Okay, anyway. So what she shared was the shame, guilt, and remorse, and she shared a Goldschlager story and picking up the phone. And, the moment that she knew that she was an alcoholic, she had to ask for help. And what she described in that moment was just something that I related to, because up until that moment in my life, I've been such a people pleaser, and I'd always done everything to be exactly what my family wanted me to be. And I come from a family of alcoholics, and, I grew up seeing things that a child shouldn't see, but it was just a part of the way that I grew up. And so when I was in the low risk facility, it wasn't really something that I could accept at that time as being an answer for my life. I just knew I was in trouble. But what she expressed, and then the big book, made sense when I started to read it. And I spent some time there, and then I pulled chain to go to prison. And they have different life skill classes in prison, and so there were plenty of opportunities for me to change. But I got an education more so about things. And after 2 years, I came out, and it was a condition of my parole to do a 90 and 90. And I remember looking in the phone book, and it was mandatory that I do it the day of release. And I saw Alpha, and I thought it was like a frat or fraternity. And then I saw Serenity, and it sounded too much like a church. And then I saw Downtown Suburban Group, and Suburban, it was what I drove, so it was like family. And so I thought, okay, that sounds nice. So, I came, and I was dressed in prison clothes, and I had to call for a ride, and it was kind of weird. I called, and then they answered, and everybody's jovial and having fun. And it reminded me a lot of, the church things that I attended growing up. It's just that laughter that happens when people love being around each other, and they're like, oh, you want to join this? It's fine, go pick her up. And I'm like, this is crazy. Because I had just come from prison, and 2 years of watching my back really didn't leave me open to receive a message that night. But what did happen is we're not a glum lot, and I totally felt that in the atmosphere. And the people that welcomed me in that night, it was a huge crowd, and it was totally a circle when we stood up at the end. And they stood up and they asked for the 24-hour. It was an outward symbol of the inward desire. And I remember hearing that, but I also remember being like, it feels like I should do something, but I don't know. And so I just remember praying, and then the chip was in my hand. It was like, I got it, and I didn't remember what happened. And looking back, God does for me what I cannot do for myself. And when I start to work the steps, it starts to reveal to my perception how much God has been with me throughout my life. And I've been in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous for over 15 years. The timeline is kind of spotty for me because I'm a blackout drinker. Once I start drinking, I black out and I just continue. I also do outside issues because I'm really bad when I'm bad. And I've been in jails, institutions, and death. I've been in a lot of things. that I got away with. And when I think about these, it would keep me in self-pity and would keep me in prevention of any type of recovery. Because the one thing that my disease likes to do is convince me that I don't deserve anything other than what I can create from my own life. And for me as a diseased alcoholic, the only creation that I can do is destruction. And clearly, everything around me up until this point has shown me that. And I didn't know any of this. It had to be shown to me through the lives of other people. And that first week, it was really just unfamiliar, but I kept going back and they were really nice to me. And it was on a Sunday morning meeting that I got a hug from a really small person, and her name was Jean Burney. And it was one of those moments where she just like welcomed me in and hugged me, and it was just like everything melted away and I felt like a little girl again. And that was remarkable because it was an unconditional love that was communicated through her to me. And she would call it the sunlight of the spirit. And, things that she would say and how she presented herself I was all about it. It was like a sponge, and I was just soaking up everything that she would say or do, and her friendships and how she interacted with people. And I just thought it was funny. It was like the Golden Girls. There was another woman, and she irritated everybody else, and it was just like things were fun. But the unconditional love just gave me the motivation to continue to come back, because I had ruined my mom's life where she didn't trust me, and then that kind of bled over to the relationship that I have with my sisters and the rest of my family. My father had passed away from cirrhosis of the liver, and my response to that was just to dive deeper into the things that oblivion gives me. And so I was able to see that, and it started to grow, and then it took off very quickly. And everything that in my life became Alcoholics Anonymous, and things began being taught to me through people that were not kin to me, but they took me under their wings. The relationship that I was in with another user was not a healthy relationship, and the sponsor that I had at the time told me it was not a healthy relationship. And as we were working the steps, in the morning I would wake up and I would just see all these medications and just that option, and then the choice that step one gives me. When I look at the we, and it's a we program, and I'm understanding the manageability in my life and what that really means, and what am I using for the hole that's within me? And do you have a sufficient substitute? Well, I'm looking at a lot of fucking substitutes. And the whole time that I'm looking, I totally ignore that it's in front of a huge mirror, in front of a person that I don't really recognize, because at that time, the program was already working on me. Because the steps are spiritual in nature. And when I've started to work those, things start to happen because I invited a higher power into my life to help me. Because I've understood the destruction, and I don't know what to do with that. But things get really good. And I get a job, and I get in a relationship, and then I start to have babies. And then, I just thought that I had it. And then life convinced me that I didn't have a disease, that maybe I just came from a troubled family, and I just had a bad shot in life, and that I'm normal now. I could control my drinking. And what that really meant was I would start drinking at 9 o'clock when the kids went to sleep until I went into a blackout, and maybe I went to a bar, or maybe I stayed at home, but I never knew what happened. All I knew is that I drank too much, and I attempted to hide it. And no one around me could tell me that I was an alcoholic, because it has to be self-diagnosed. And it's really sad to watch somebody go down a pathway and not ever be able to help them because they continue to lie, mostly to myself. I had a job that was really good, and I had to talk, but I would get totally toasted at lunch, and I had an enunciation problem, so I would go to the bathroom and try to pretend that my tongue wasn't thick and I wasn't slurring my words. They could hear that. The manager was like she was 2 offices down from the bathroom. You think that she couldn't hear that? She probably did. You think they couldn't smell the beer and the alcohol in my foam cup on my desk? Yeah, they probably could. Anybody say anything? Nobody did. Because what I've learned about alcoholism is it goes to a point where you are beyond human aid. And what I was taught was that incomprehensible demoralization is something that has to break within me. And Denise used to describe it as the trap door on your bottom. You reached your bottom, and then there's a trap door. And for me, that happened. And I've been through so much through my disease and through trying to control my emotions, because emotional sobriety is just as important as physical sobriety. And I have to understand that. But I have to have a reliance on people to help me to understand that. And I had a really good friend that we came in the program together, and we were the same age, and she passed away during this time that I had been back out or I was drinking. And she fell asleep, and then she passed away in her sleep. And then I got a message about that a couple of days after it happened. And a couple of weeks later, where were you? How come you didn't show up? And, memories like this that are coming back to me as I'm clearing out my mind in recovery, and I'm trying to apply these steps. But what brought me back this time was a total miracle happened faster than I thought, or faster than I could switch on the light switch. And it was someone that called me in a moment when I was about to take my own life, because I was tired of not being able to stay sober. And I was tired of letting everyone down, and I was just tired, and I didn't see a way out. And so for whatever reason, my functions were not working in that moment. Instead, the phone call happened. And so I put it to my ear instead of the gun and had a conversation. And when I think about those moments that happened in 90 seconds or less, I don't know, because I didn't have a stopwatch. It wasn't like a moment that was anticipated that I was going to participate in, because I was so tired of being that person that was always the alcoholic, or always the one that was doing good and falling behind. I have a special needs son, and he relies on me. He's going to be dependent on me for the rest of his life. If not, he'll be a burden to society around him. And I look at that as like alcoholism and the progression of a disease that you can't ever control. It's jails, institutions, sanitariums, death, all that good stuff. A lobotomy. I'm a woman with alcoholism, and I'm Native American. There's only a few avenues for my kind of crazy. And for Sawyer, he depends on me to be sober. And so in those moments, it was like, I'm such a piece of shit. I can't get myself together for even an angel, so I might as well just. And God was like, no. And then I was frustrated and just a ball of emotion, because I'm a real alcoholic. So when you take away my solution, I just get worse. And the people that were in my life during that time, that have continued to be in my life for over 10 years, they were wanting me to be put into a facility. They kept bringing up behavioral health things. But for me, I do not like locked doors. Prison is nothing like I want to go back to. I'm very combative when I'm locked up, and I've done weekend jail, and I've been in crazy I just don't want to do it anymore. If I have to, then I will, if that's God's will for me. There's a part of me that wanted to go back and do the prison thing, and that would be awesome if that's an opportunity. But in the first year, I had to understand where I was at was not of anybody else's reason except for my own. But in the very beginning, I was wanting to blame, and I was in such a hurt position. But I had to reach out for help, and I had to tell people about that vulnerability, and I had to be accountable for my life for 3 people. That anytime I had a notion to harm myself, I would let them know, or at least have a conversation with them. And that's what Alcoholics Anonymous has given me in my life. That was an option. If Alcoholics Anonymous was not in my life, that would have not been an option. Any person that would have heard what I said would have done what was supposed to happen and put me in a facility. Because I'm a mother, I have children that I'm responsible for. I also have a husband that has PTSD. And in the beginning, it was always point, what can I do? And that's why Al-Anon is very helpful for me also. Because I can't drink no matter what any outside circumstances tell me that I need to do, right? And wherever AA is, I have to be responsible, which tells me that anytime I'm away from this room, I have to be responsible for the program that I'm living, which means I have to be responsible for where I wake up and decide to be sober, and I can't run away. So I made this bed and I got to lie in it. And the old timers told me that too. Well, alcoholics are known to paint themselves in corners. You know, the one-liners that they just say as they walk by you and you're in your shit. And you're like, that made me mad. We keep coming back. Oh, I'm so glad that you're sad, and I'm happy that you're sad. Because that means that I'm not where you are and I am here, being happy, looking at you being sad. That's Alcoholics Anonymous. And I would keep coming back for that emotional abuse because I know it's the one place where you can laugh at something like that, where I can let my guard down and my vulnerability and allow people that are like-minded, just like me, into that sacred place that I used to feel with alcohol. And, you know, the remarkable things that have happened to me in the course of this year, it's just been tremendous. Before I came in, you know, I was about to lose my house. I was about to lose my kids again. I just had a daughter. And, you know, the life was on the bottom of the rung. I could just see everything slipping through. And my first response to do anything was just to fix it by trying to kill myself in any other way. But the cool thing about the God that I understand is He puts things in my life that allow me to stop focusing on that and start focusing on the life that is in my life. And there's a little girl that I'm a stepmother to, and I met her mother on July 4th, 2016. And she, you know, she blessed the union and she was excited about my pregnancy, and 2 days later she died of a heart attack. And I'm thinking of these women who I know were very good mothers, they were very good members of society, people loved them, they were creative. They were kind of women that you wanted to take care of kids and be around, always excited to see you. I'm not that kind of chick. I can be, but I'm really moody. But I would put myself in a position to constantly compare my insides to your outsides and constantly trying to do things. And as I'm doing this, I'm not even realizing that cunning, baffling, powerful is in the steering wheel right now. So I have to go back to one. And I have to understand that rarely have we seen a person fail. Usually means that this will probably work if I'm willing to go to any length necessary. And for me as an alcoholic, I have to pray about that. Well, what does any length look like for me today, God? Sometimes it's very peaceful. And I'm like, whoa, this day is too peaceful, God. No, it's exactly you being in a place of serenity. Because I don't like drama or being disruptive, because I have to deal with that. I have to be calm. And it was very difficult in the beginning because I'm very fresh with things that happened while I was drinking and things that my son and my daughters had witnessed that they should not have witnessed, and police that came over and things that were just not even addressed. And when I'm working at the steps and I'm trying to understand, the sponsor I had was that use my God until your God shows up again. You can borrow my God until your God shows up again. It's the spiritual part of the program, Amanda. You can't read your way into sober. And I hear these things, I'm just continuing to do these things. But everything is raw and everything is fresh. And I try to come in and listen to other people, and I just don't think that I have anything to give. And what happens is this really cool gravity thing starts to happen in my life. And I start to have a real sincere desire to understand and to seek and to sought. Because I was grasping onto everything in that moment. And I've had several of those moments over the course of my life where it was God and me, and God said, this is what I need you to do, so suck it the fuck up and go do what you need to do. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. Because it hurts. It hurts to admit my fault. It hurts to examine my behaviors are selfish. It hurts to know that I'm responsible for the pain in other people's lives if I'm drinking or not. And when I think about that responsibility and how that's reflected in the lives that I have in my life today, it is a true miracle. You know, my home is secure because God brought people into my life through prayer. And it wasn't anything that I did apart from just calling and not even able to speak words, but only crying. And for me, that's very difficult, because to allow someone to see my weakness gives them a one-up on me. And yes, that's an old ideal, and I do not do step work to pray it away, because it still kind of fits with me. For my own self be true, and I have to understand those things, because my God wants to be happy, joyous, and free. And what does that look like if I'm not in service of a God that's been brought to my understanding? And for me to serve a higher power, it can be anything from opening a door for someone, or just listening to another person, or just allowing myself to be available and be a maximum service. And when I come at the program from that approach, then before I know it, I have things that fill my day with such good things. If I can just participate, and I can just let go of my shortcomings, and I can just let go and let God. And then before I know it, it's what I see in the sunlight of the Spirit that's all around me. And I can see the divinity and connect with the Spirit that's in everybody. Because the book also tells me that God is either everything or he's nothing. And I have to make this decision in step 3. And then I have cool things that old timers say that say, well, you're a frog on a log. What the fuck does that mean, a frog on a log on step 3? I don't understand that at all. I'm a frog on a log. I'm still stuck on step 2 because I'm trying to fix something that's broken with my brain, which is the only thing that I've been relying on my entire life. And I drank alcohol to control the brain that controls me. And when I took that away, you're asking me to fill in this information and try to do these things, then you're telling me not to rely on the one thing that I have that I can't really get away from. So the reliance starts to become a faith in action. It's a faith that works. And without it, it dies. And for me, the faith is always going into the unknown. And so I went into things that frightened me and scared me. But through those experiences, I became willing to accept and understand a broader scope of acceptance. And when it put me in a place to accept that, then I was able to see where my place was again. And, you know, the ability to be open for the things in a day instead of wanting to take a drink to control that is the miracle of the program for me. Because when it comes to control, it's also a part of my disease. I want to think that I can control everything around me. Just like I think I can use my anger to control and manipulate everything around me. But it's the one thing that I have to understand is there is nothing that is of me anymore. I've taken too many chances. I have wrecked too many lives. And I don't have any rights to do anything for myself anymore. And I have to accept that. And when I do, the step 3 is not that hard. Because then I'm like, whoa, I can't do anything for me. So God, will you help me? And before you know it, step 4 is there. And I'm trying to define what morality is for me. What does it look like in my life? Well, if I can compare my behavior to morality, there's no comparison to that. My behavior is not moral. I am not a stand-up moral person. I'm not a person that you follow because I make bad decisions. So what is the morality to me? What is an interest list? What is the stocks and balances? What does your inventory look like? I don't run a fucking business. I don't know what that means. So then people had to tell me, well, why don't you go to the Webster Dictionary and look up morality? Any suggestion? Okay, fine. Oh, that means that. Okay. Because it was always humble pie for me to slow down and actually look at the words that I was choosing, understanding the definitions that my brain was telling me that these words were. And what does that mean? Well, that means that I'm full of bullshit. I'm full of so much shit and so much self-delusion at that precipice on step 4 that I'm just about ready for anything to make me just different. Because I understand how much of a jigsaw puzzle I've actually made my own life and myself. And at that point, I have to allow God. I have to abandon myself to that idea. And it's just an idea. Just like the drink was an idea that it could relieve all my troubles. It's just an idea. What makes it a program is I place action in the idea. The faith is the reliance on a higher power to show me what it is in the morality in a 24-hour period that can reveal God to me. And that's really cool because that brings me to step 5. And my character defect as a human being is to be a diseased alcoholic, which kind of means that I isolate myself. And I can set myself apart from a crowd, in a crowd, on purpose. And, use every little self-defensive tactic that I have inside of myself to prevent you from coming close to me. Because for me, the communication of loving me means I will hurt you in the end. And my life has also proven that. But Alcoholics Anonymous gives a paradox to that. And it continues to fulfill a part of my life over and over again, as long as I keep coming back. But this time I know that I don't have another sobering up in me, because I'm actually sincerely trying to see how to live my life a better way. And it's a struggle every day, but it's not as bad as it was in the very beginning. I still suffer from anxiety issues, and I still deal with things on a daily basis. The special needs program is not all that, and I want him to do this and that. It's no control in that. So I lift it up. I have to have that reliance of faith that works. And if I don't use these things and I just try to get my own means, my thoughts would be, I'm going to kidnap my kids, we're going to go up to the Ozarks and just hide out off the grid. These are my thoughts, I'm going to kill everybody over there and go bury them here, that way they won't bother me anymore. These are my thoughts. And these are cool thoughts. It's the action behind them, right? No, I have to examine the thoughts. What is in me that I think that I should do this? And the program tells me easy does it. That means slow down. Take a moment and examine why it is that you're impulsive to do certain things. Why am I so judgmental? Why do, And for me, I have to practice taking why out of the way that I look at my steps. Because if why was ever part of it, then I wouldn't understand a step 7, or even why it's supposed to be there. In the St. Francis prayer, I really like that, because I try to think about that as I'm living my life. Because the world that I live in now is the world that you all live in, and it's very scary. And there's just things that can be heightened at any given moment. And to know that is a precious gift, because I think about those that have gone that weren't able to come back. And I think about those that are still struggling, and then they come in and then they grab onto those things, and the recovery starts to make its own life in the lives of the people that start to grab a hold of it. And to be a part of that tapestry is it's really an awesome thing for me to see, because I know how fragile it truly is. I was in a conversation, it was around the first 90 days this time, and I had my daughter at home with me, and my husband got a new job, but I was going crazy during the day, y'all. I was just bonkers, nuts. And so I would call people through the day, go through my bawling, like on the floor crying. Then I would get up, take care of business. Then I'd be like, I can't stop fucking feeling this way. I have to walk through those feelings. I have to go through the DTs. I have to go to any length necessary. And the whole time, I'm just wondering why God has brought me through this time. And then I have to remember to stop fucking asking why and just have acceptance into my life. Stop trying to figure out something that creates things and just enjoy what's happening right now. And things start to happen. But the sacrifice that comes in the program, my family always has to adjust themselves. And that adjustment has been very difficult. But God has revealed for me how that happens. Alcoholism is a family disease, and it doesn't get healed overnight. And I wish that everyone would get on the bandwagon and come to Al-Anon with me, or come to the church programs that I go to. And I wish that they would do all these things, but I can't control other people. I can only be responsible for my own actions. And the growth in that relationship that happens is I become a different person, and the other person stays exactly the same. The only difference is I'm working a program where the actions and my behavior start to become effective in a way that's beyond me. And then when it comes back to me, it starts to allow me to understand the spiritual nature of the program has nothing to do with me at all. It only has to do with the participation that I choose to do. And when I think about it that way, then such a perspective and awareness happens in my life. And I'm able to give, and I'm able to receive, and I'm able to see. But I know that that is just a risk. I think about people that use their defenses of their emotional state to do these acts. And for me, I use alcoholism to do these things, but it's still just based on my emotional recovery. And how much am I willing to say that I'm responsible for if I'm relying on a power that's outside of myself? Well, these are all questions that bring me through the steps. These are all things that are within my life that I participate with another human being that has the same disease, that is self-diagnosed just like me. Because when you're trying to make your life better just by doing something different, God does something. And for me, it happens sometimes when I don't want it to happen, and I can just sit in awe of things that are so magnificent in that nanosecond of a moment and want it to last forever. And I know that drinking would take that away. Trying to be self-destructive would take that away. I have a really good friend that says, stop self-abusing yourself. Stop trying to control yourself or tear yourself down. You're the bully here. You beat yourself up, because I do. And I don't express that very much, but every alcoholic that I know would rather hurt themselves than anyone else. And when I relate that, something else happens. And, it has been a year, and I have another chance at life. And I have a sponsee. And, it's incredible that people call me ma'am. And I'm trying not to resent that. But then again, I'm like, oh, cool, I got wrinkles now. But I still feel like I'm 16 in my brain. Well, I must have alcoholism. Because these are the things that are taught to me. If I don't choose to live, if I don't choose to wake up every morning and thank God that I am awake and I'm alive and I'm a participant in the day that is made for me, things just start to happen. And, I've been forgiven for so many things spiritually. But while I try to trudge this road of happy destiny, I will take those things back in a moment. Because my disease always wants me to not participate. It wants me to die, or at least participate in getting some more on its team. And, opinions may vary, but the singleness of purpose is that I am here to help another person, and another person helps me by being here. And the simplicity of the program has been doing that for a very long time. And when I think about the history and I think about the people that are connected just through being in these rooms, it's in everything. Just as the book said, God is either everything or it's nothing. And I listened to my story that I said before, and I have to retract something. I was not salutatorian in my high school. I was in the top 10%, but I did not rank anything like that. But I did lie and say that I was. And it was for a joke. But when I listened to it, nobody really laughed until like 2 beats later. And so I thought, okay, maybe that was not the right joke. And then I actually saw, and then I was like, okay, I gotta say that when I tell my story this time, because it's a program of honesty. And I'm trying to be honest and open and willing to set the rights that I've done are wrong in my life. And part of the things that were wrong in my life is I was not executing my right to live in the pursuit of happiness. I was not doing that. I was executing my right to kill myself on a daily basis, regardless of how that affected people that had just lost their mother, then got their mother back, that suffer from a special needs thing and are around the world. All these people that are relying on me will not rely on me anymore if I'm not there. And I know that God will be there for them, but I'm grateful that I can participate so I can actually have a true amends that comes alive in my life. Because the 4-year chip moment, that I was going to get my 4-year chip, and my mother passed away at the hospital behind the building. And it was in those hours after she had passed away, that Alcoholics Anonymous made a cocoon around me. And I had collapsed in the hallway because I had saw someone that I had held up to be the image of my mom, the mom I wanted. And when I saw her, I collapsed because I knew I just let my own mother go. But God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And so I was able to sit there in that moment and be in that cocoon of help, and to be able to understand the maternal surrogacy that happens to my life because I'm a participant in Alcoholics Anonymous is a spiritual principle of tolerance. They tolerated my life enough in my pain to embrace it with their program. And that affected my life in a profound way. But I still drank. I still had that moment where I thought that this will be cool and I can control it and wait. But I knew it before I even did it that this was not the right thing to do. And my disease was driving and I did not, and it was me drinking against my will. And I knew as soon as it passed my lips that I would be doing other things closely after that. And all the effort and all the investment, emotional investment that friends and family had done for me up until that point was for naught. All the pain that I put my family through, including my sons, was for naught. My mother dying, my father dying, all that was for naught because I couldn't stand up to peer pressure. And yes, it was my family, but I couldn't place any blame. I had to accept the responsibility in that moment for what it was. And when I think about it that way, it puts things into perspective, because then I can start to slow down and understand my capabilities are only in the day that I am in right now. And it's nothing else beyond that. And when I start to understand that, then I'm like, okay, I can't even do this, God. And then God says, okay, I'll show you this. And before I know it, my steps are being taken for me, and my hands are being directed, and my words are being chosen. And I don't understand or remember them, but I'm trying to live an honest and open life and willing to set the rights that I've done wrong. The amends list that I have, it's, the things that I feel bad about are different than the things that other people feel bad about. I cracked a boy's tailbone in 5th grade, and I didn't get in trouble for it. And years later, I saw the same boy at college, and just that mutual exchange was the amends. Because it wasn't more or less for me, it was for him. And then later, same things have happened. The amends that I made to my mother was brought into my life because of Alcoholics Anonymous. She was able to see her daughter come back to her through the love in the eyes of other people that loved me as much as she did. But they were able to be what she couldn't be because my disease had taken that away. And when I look at these things that are evidence to my life and letting go of my old ideas, it's just a wonderful place to be, because then I'm able to hear who needs the help. I'm able to say that I've been there and I understand. Because when I'm put in such a place where I can only ask for God to help me and have a sincere desire that God will answer that question, then I know that my life will be okay in that moment. Because I'm not thinking about a drink. I'm not thinking about my own suffering. I'm actually focused on a power that's outside of me. And slowly, things just start to subside, and serenity does become a working part of my life. And I'm not going to take up the whole hour, but that's all I have. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you, Amanda. That's great stuff.